What's up, y'all? What's up, y'all? War Eagle. I'm here. Your man, Ike Jones, rolling solo for right now. May have some of the guys jump in a little bit later, but we are here reacting to the press conference that just got finished at the new facility over there in Auburn. Hugh Freeze announced officially as the head coach of the Auburn Tigers, and just wanted to take a minute to check in with the War Report family and see how you guys are feeling about everything that just took place. If you had an opportunity to watch the presser, if you haven't, we'll have it up on our channel here in just a little bit. But just wanted to get some quick reactions and thoughts out, hear from you all. Not so much want to talk about what I feel about it because, ultimately that's not relevant, but just wanted to get some reactions from you all here in the comments. So make sure you're checking in with us. You are live right now with your man Ike Jones right here on the War Report, reacting to Hugh Freeze announced as the head football coach at Auburn University. So I am going to open up the chat. The chat is definitely already open. If you can't comment, it's because you're not subscribed. We did leave this open to just people who are subscribed. If you don't know, we have membership options that are available here with the War Report. And if you want to be able to do some of the more exclusive content, apologies to those of you who are patrons. I normally would have done a post-game breakdown and done a watch the film for the game, but all of this stuff has transpired in the last 24 to 48 hours, has kind of delayed that. I was literally in the middle of recording the watch the film for the Iron Bowl when the news broke about Hugh Freeze. So haven't had a chance to finish that up and get that edited and out to you guys, but I will have it before the end of the week, as well as some stuff on just some Hugh Freeze things in particular when we start looking at forward to the future of what the Auburn offense might look like under Hugh Freeze. But at any rate, appreciate everybody for checking in with us here in the chat. So, yeah, so just thoughts initially from me, and then of course you can put yours in the chat and I'll check in with that. I like how John Cohen opened the press conference with giving props to Cadillac, and Hugh Freeze did the exact same thing when he got up to speak, just talking about how Coach Carnell Williams had helped to bridge the gap between what was a tumultuous, unfortunate ending for Brian Harsin and what needed to happen through the end of the season, and just watching the way that Coach Lack was able to galvanize not just the players but the fan base and allow for Auburn to finish in a respectable way at the end of the season. So definite props to them for understanding the place that he have and it has, and then immediately making it known, this morning, even before the presser with an official release from Coach Lack, that he was going to be retained on the staff as an associate head coach. So props to them for getting that right with this hire, with making sure that they let it be known up front that Carnell Williams is not a person that you can easily replace. One of the best running back coaches in the country, and definitely important to the Auburn family. So like that portion of it was something that they got out of the way initially. Definitely liked a lot of the things that were said in regard to when Coach Hugh Freeze took the stand, in regard to the thorough nature in which John Cohen, and this is something that we've talked about on the channel, we felt like John Cohen had been a meticulous person, President Roberts meticulous in the way that they wanted to go about things. So like the meticulous nature, felt like it was a little bit of like they were saying, Hugh Freeze was the guy all along type of stuff. It was clear Lane Kiffin was heavy in talks. But listen, when you have the same agent representing both of those people, simultaneous talks can definitely be happening. So I'm not saying that it wasn't a 1A, 1B situation, but to act as if Kiffin wasn't a part of it was a little, I think, disingenuous. But hey, and it is what it is. I think Hugh Freeze was always one of the guys that was a top target on that. But it's going to be hard for me to just sit here and talk to you guys without you getting some feedback. So I'm not going to sit here and babble on and on and on about all the things that I heard. I do want to hear from you. So I'm going to jump in here to the chat and see what everybody's talking about. Kevin Dumas jumps in and says that Freeze scored a TD on that one. Won over a lot of doubters. I bet I feel better about him now. I don't know. I think it's interesting. There are going to be some people who are going to hate this regardless of what they just heard from Hugh Freeze. But there are going to be people who might have been on the line who probably are like, okay, well, we'll give him a chance. I think he did a really good job of selling himself in that press conference. I would grade his press conference very highly if I were to just put a grade on it. I don't know what it would be, but it wouldn't be. He definitely passed the mustard on this one. Let's see. John Bryan jumps in and says Freeze bought himself time in my eyes. Got to walk the walk now. So, okay. So, hey, listen, Kevin, you're right. Already here in the comments between yourself and this second comment that I've got up here, people are already saying, hey, won him over, or got them in a place where now they're ready to at least give him a chance. Um, Eric Eric Pearson jumps in, didn't really know much about Coach Freeze, but I'm feeling pretty impressed right now. War Damn Eagle. Listen, Coach Freeze did a really good job. I think the thing that I liked the most about his comments, and just to juxtapose the immediacy of watching John Cohen up there at the podium and not really look polished, right? Like he's reading off of a paper. He looks a little nervous. Um, Coach Freeze looked like he definitely had things he wanted to say that were rehearsed, right? So, but he delivered it really well without having to look at his notes very much. So it's something that he sat and thought about. I'm sure he's been waiting for this moment. You can tell he really wanted this, despite the like let's take the emotion out of it. There were some very real emotions that he was spilling out over there about his family, and that's to be expected, considering what he's come back from in these last 6 years. But I think it showed just how much he just really wanted to be back in the SEC, back in a place that he thought he'd screwed up, right? Like he didn't know if he would ever get this chance again, but he really wanted it, and he had been waiting for this moment. And I think this is a very surreal place for him to be in right now, to be back in a seat that he feels like he he screwed himself out of initially. So, for a lack of better words, I know people are gonna nitpick my words on that one. I'm not rehearsing any of this; is all off the cuff. But anyway, let's get back to it. Um, let's see. Michael Carlisle says, I don't think he could have done better. It would have been difficult. I don't know what more he could have said. He faced some really kind of tough questions. I'll give props right now to the media members that were there in the room. They didn't shy away from asking some tough questions. He even kind of rebuffed a little bit. Like he's like, "Hey, listen, I don't know what you want me to say about that." Like questions about whether or not Greg Sankey, would even allow him to coach again in the SEC. He's like, I don't know anything about that. Questions about the fan base and their disapproval. And he's like, hey, just give me a chance to, get to know me a little bit better outside the allegations and those things. I think he did a really good job of addressing things head on and not seeming combative when asked questions that were kind of tough. And I like his demeanor throughout the entire thing. So I'll agree with you, Michael. I don't know that he could have done much better. Let's see. Uh, Anti-panic. I'm not sure you can be an Auburn fan and have this name, but hey, we'll go with it. Hugh Freeze was crying. That man is passionate. Being given a second chance, he's about to show doubters he's going to change Auburn. Listen, I am 100% in the camp of people who would like to see a change at Auburn. I don't know that Hugh Freeze is going to change Auburn. I think that Hugh Freeze is going to do a good job of coming in. Well, if I guess let me correct myself. There's definitely a need for a change in the trajectory of where we're going as a program with Auburn football. And I'm looking forward to seeing Hugh Freeze be a part of that change. But I think that change actually started with Coach Lack, right? Like I think Hugh Freeze is going to change or continue the positive momentum that started the last 4 weeks. So definitely glad to see the things that he's got going on here. This is an interesting quote, right? This is something that AD Cohen said. We've got two great leaders for this program. And speaking of now head coach Hugh Freeze and previous interim coach, now assistant coach Carnell Williams, I think it was very interesting that he made it clear that Coach Williams is a leader inside that locker room and a needed piece. And he was very careful with those words to say we've got two great leaders, not wanting to cast too much aside. I think I'd be interested. I don't know that there's been any details released about what the contract is for Coach Williams, but it'd be interesting to see how much they paid him for his services and his loyalty over these last couple of weeks, and his responsibility in this change in direction. Because changing momentum and moving it in the opposite direction is a tough job. So it'd be interesting to see how much they valued that with their pocketbooks on that. So very, very interested to see when the details come out, if they have not already. Jumping back in here to the chat. Tony Baker says War Eagle folks have to give this guy a chance. He's going to win football games. The rest is between him and his family. This is a popular sentiment amongst people, is that the family stuff or the things off the field are between he and his family. I think that there is a little bit of a gray area when it comes to a football coach, because he is a leader of men and of young men. So, things that he does in his private life definitely lend to the direction in which you are going to be leading people. And he talked about it himself. It's not just about football. It's about making sure that you're setting these young men up for success in their future. Definitely some things that are mostly should be kept amongst family, and that are more important that his family has to deal with than we as the Auburn faithful have to. But there is a portion of what happens in his private life that matters as a football coach and as a mentor and as a leader of those young men, that you want to make sure that you have the right person in that seat. But mostly agree with what you're saying right there. Just want to jump in here. I am gonna, guys, just gonna be honest here. I'm gonna prioritize chats that are coming in that are super chats, and chats that are coming in from members of the War Report. I already mentioned it. If you're not a member of the War Report, you can come on board. Patron memberships $5.99. That's what gets you film reviews and such. Typically, when we do these lives, we restrict those to members chats only. But in these times where it's not really about games and such, we tend to make those a little bit more open. In our normal weekly lives that are Sundays and Wednesdays, we leave those open. But usually with the special lives outside of Sunday and Wednesday, restrict those to members, but we did leave it open today. At any rate, I am going to prioritize those that are members in the chat and for those that are super chatting. So if I skip over your comment, it's not because I didn't think it was valuable or I'm ignoring you. I'm just trying to give credence to those that are paying money to be able to say stuff. And I think that's fair. At any rate, let me jump down here to a super chat from our guy Joe Kyle, who says A+ for the introductory statement, A+ for the Q&A, and A+ for the media asking tough questions respectfully. I have to echo all of the things you just said there, Tom, or excuse me, Joe, that the media did a great job. I think they asked questions that people wanted to hear asked. And he answered them in a great way. They didn't seem very pushy. I thought the guy who I really don't like bringing his name up on the program, just because he's been a little on the edge of a little too much for me sometimes, did kind of double down on the question. It's like, and Hugh Freeze did respond. It's like, I said, I answered that already. Right. Like, so that was probably the only moment where I was like, oh, that got a little contentious for no reason. But actually, outside of that, yeah, a great job by everyone present in both the statements that were made and for the questions that were asked and the way that they were asked in a very professional manner. So I appreciate that. Um, our guy John Brannon jumps in here and says that Mike G asked great questions. I think that Mike had some really good questions again that people wanted to hear about, both in talking about, if you guys didn't hear Mike ask a question about how he was going to be utilizing the portal. I think that was one portion of it. I forgot what the first portion of the question was, but he asked about the portal and how he was going to be doing that sort of thing. So definitely props to Mike G for, number one, Mike G uh, getting up out of bed and in the condition that he's been in recently. It took a lot for him to do that and drive over. So props to him for going in there. He wanted to be there. And so he kind of willed his body to be able to do that. So props to Mike G for just getting in there and doing the work for us down there. So very, very appreciative of him and the things that he's been able to do to contribute, getting himself back into. I know this isn't about Mike G. Oh yes, the other part was he asked about was Hugh Freeze going to call plays, and was very telling in saying this is the first time in his entire career that he may not be calling plays. He's considering, because of the level of inquiries he's gotten from people who he considers to be really great offensive minds, that he may step aside from play calling and just focus on other portions and be more in the administrative CEO seat. So I thought that that was a very interesting and a very good nugget to get right off the bat from Hugh Freeze, from the question about Mike G. But again, back to my props to Mike G about just being a soldier, for doing all the things that we do here at the War Report and just kind of willing himself into the space to be there because he really wanted to be there today. So major props to him for going and doing that, and being there on behalf of our crew. So appreciate him. Cleveland Brown jumps in and says Cohen said Freeze was his number one. That's interesting, right? I do think it's interesting. I don't know that I believe that wholeheartedly, that he was number one. I could believe 1A and 1B, but I do think that to act as if um, there wasn't some interest in Lane Kiffin, I think is a little disingenuous. But I think it's good to say, hey, listen, you both of you guys were running neck and neck, and we wanted him from the beginning. He's not our sloppy seconds type of thing. He isn't our settle guy. And it's clear Hugh Freeze wanted the job as well. So I think for my liking, and we like to give relationship analogies here on this channel. Choosing someone who's choosing you as well is important in relationships, right? Like, it's not just I want somebody and I pursue them until they break. It is I want them, I pursue them, but they have a mutual interest as well. Okay, this makes it a different kind of thing. The synergy can be different in those situations. It's clear Hugh Freeze wanted this job. It's clear that Auburn wanted Hugh Freeze. So good for both on that. Jumping here again to the chat. Let's see if there's anything else. There's a lot of chats coming in. We appreciate all of you who are jumping in. Another midday live, right? Like, what are we doing here? We're just trying to overload you guys with content here, but we appreciate all of you who are taking time out of your day to jump in and chat with us. Let's see here. Just a lot of congratulations. Glad to have Freeze type of stuff. Um, Glennis Curry said possible Kiffin was not the boosters number was the boosters number one, not Cohen. I don't know which of those two things is true. I don't know if Cohen was a Freeze guy and the boosters wanted Kiffin, or if it was the other way around. But I do feel like they came together and put a list, and the top of that list included those two names, and they were able to land one of those two. So John Brandon, Sexton knows he worked to get it and get Lane that fat raise. Listen, man, Jimmy Sexton, bro, he is he's out here living large, man, and he's doing all the right things for his clients. He is working if there was a behind the scenes puppet master of the coaching searches, Jimmy Sexton is that guy. He is really out here working. If you are a college coach and Jimmy Sexton is not your um he's not your agent, well, and you want a job in the Southeast, then I don't know what you're doing with your life, because that guy is doing work. He is doing work, man. So props to him for whatever he's out here doing, man. But God, Jimmy Sexton, I'd like a little bit of that. Let's see here. John jumps back in here and says, who would I like to keep for Hugh to keep on his staff? I mean, the number one, and props to my guy, Duke the Scoop. We recorded something last night before this. We'd be dropping that later on today. But I talked a little bit about that on the call with him. So he and I talked a little bit last night about what we wanted to see out of this Hugh Freeze administration. So I'll leave you on a cliffhanger there with my answer on that, because I want you to go watch that video. But we did discuss retentions on the staff, potential hires, all of that sort of thing. So I'll punt on that one a little bit, just because I do want you guys to go watch that. But I think priority one, which I did make clear in that, was retention of Cadillac Williams, which has happened. So definitely glad to see that. Let's see. Let's see what else we got here. But I will let some people in the comments answer that. So I do see a lot of people in here making their statements about that. So just here, Eric Pearson says Lane can stay at Ole Miss forever and go for it on fourth down every time, and I'll be happy with that. Eric, I am not. If you guys follow the channel, then you know that I was trying to talk myself into being hype about Lane Kiffin, and I was okay with it, because listen, I'm going to ride with whoever the head coach is until they give me a reason to not ride with them anymore. But I was always questionable about some of the decision making that Lane Kiffin had, specifically about going for it on fourth down. That drove me crazy, and I wasn't even an Ole Miss fan. I was just like, yo, what are you doing, bro? So definitely not upset to not have to deal with that sort of headache, because we were already dealing with it enough as it was, and Lane Kiffin was that to like the nth degree. So Austin Holland says Freeze is going to bring in a guy that knows defense, and Lane would not have. Freeze was the better option. This was the other issue that I had with Lane Kiffin, is I just hadn't seen a defense that looked competitive for 12 games on at any stop that he ever had coached. So I was always worried about whether or not he was going to be able to find quality defensive coach, a defensive coordinator, excuse me. It would have been different at Auburn for sure with the resources, but I mean, with the amount of money we were going to have to pay Lane Kiffin, it would have left less money for us to be able to fill out a staff that would have been quality. So I just don't know, man. Let's see. Austin Holland jumps back in, says, gotta keep Travon Reed too. I am hopeful that Travon Reed will have an opportunity to remain here. I think he's an Auburn loyalist, and look forward to seeing him continue to do wonderful things with the recruiting. That's something else that we talked about a little bit last night. And again, I'm gonna have that video up on the channel today, talking with my man Dukes to Scoop in regard to what this staff could look like. So you guys make sure that you keep your eyes peeled for that. So two things I know from a content standpoint that will be going up on the channel today. We will have a rebroadcast of that press conference available here on the channel. So be looking out for that. And I also will have a conversation that I had with Dukes to Scoop about what we have going on right now with the new hire and our hopes for because kind of what the next few weeks will look like under Hugh Freeze. Some of those questions have been answered in regards to Cadillac Williams and his retention. We were very confident about that when we talked about it last night, but that was confirmed this morning. And then just some hopeful things around other staff retention. So you guys make sure that you stay tuned for that thing. Let's see. Bay Lyman, thank you for always being a loyal guy here in the chat. Says Freeze's teams are more balanced offensively and defensively than Lane's. Just echoing something that we were talking about already. Definitely believe that he has more balance overall. If you just look at, I mean, the whole land shark thing was a thing under Hugh Freeze when Ole Miss was there, when he was at Ole Miss, excuse me. So definitely something that you can look at and say, hey, he's had a better history of being able to do that. He talked about in this press conference that he wants to have a very sharp defensive mind. He's already been getting a lot of inquiries, text messages from people who want to be a part of the staff. And so if there's high level inquiries from guys who he respects already, I'm looking forward to seeing how that pans out. If you guys don't know, you are watching the War Report, your man Ike Jones. You are a supporter of this channel and we appreciate it. If you're a subscriber, then you can jump in here and chat. If you aren't a subscriber, make sure you go ahead and do that. Get your subscription up, but you can get a membership to the War Report as well to get some other things that may not be available unless you are a member. When I may even make the Dukes to Scoop thing a members only thing. I don't know, man. It's going to definitely be an audio thing, but I may make it a members only thing just because I want to give more value to those of you who have done that sort of thing. So, but yeah, if you want to be a member, at least $3.99, but $5.99 gets you to the place where we can do the film breakdowns, and I will have some Hugh Freeze film to break down for you guys. Within the next week or so. It's going to take some time for me to get to that place to be able to do that because I still have to watch the film for the Iron Bowl, but I will definitely get to that stuff as well. So appreciate all of you who continue to support the War Report, but continue to do that, and we'll jump back in here to the chat. Excuse me. Let's see. We got a lot of chats coming in here, so we appreciate everybody who is. Again, I am going to try to prioritize a little bit those of you who are members and super chatting. So we'll definitely try to get that. I thought it was interesting, just interesting quotes from Hugh Freeze. One of the questions that was asked of him was there any validity to the statement about people, a requirement was that they were going to take away his access to social media. And he said, no, that's not true. He said, it might be wisdom, but it's not true that it was a requirement. But he did actually mention that someone else was handling his account these last few weeks while he was at Liberty, right? So it's not going to be uncommon for him to like relinquish control of his account to someone else. So I think that's going to be interesting. As to whether or not there will be times where where you'll see a tweet come out from a Hugh Freeze account, and now you have to wonder, was that Hugh Freeze saying that, or was that someone who's running his account, right? I think that's going to be an interesting thing to keep an eye on going forward. So let's see. Reginald Pegues, like the last name just because I'm a big fan of JJ. I don't know if you're related to him, but I just don't know a lot of Pegueses out here. But anyway, War Damn Eagle Freeze had on an AU embossed blazer. Excellent PR move for him at Ike. Lane's fourth down moves were concerning. Yes. If you are a Pegues and you are related to JJ, then you know all too well, as he was a guy who had to deal with that on the defense in regard to that. But yeah, no, appreciate you the chat, and I agree with everything. The Blazer was, man, whoever is helping these guys, it's probably listen. I don't like calling out businesses that aren't like giving us money, but we do know who's been doing a lot of the suit stuff down there for the Auburn coaches, and they be hooking them up, man. They got some nice tailors down there in the Auburn area that make sure those coaches are right for whatever opportunities they have to be out there in front of people. Um, let's see. We got uh Eugenia here saying, Lady, and really like the press conference. Caddy as associate head coach is tremendous. Agreed 100%. We've talked about that a little bit. Our girl, this is Mama Ashford right here. Love seeing you here in the chat. Mike G hit a home run. I did not think Cohen was lying about Freeze uh, uh, being number one. Kiffin was the fans' number one. I don't think Kiffin really would work for Cohen. Sexton is the man. I am excited about this. Listen, Robbie Ashford already tweeted out his excitement about it. This is his mother coming in here commenting about her excitement. Um, from Mike was there at the press conference. If you guys didn't know already, he said Robbie was there in the room. So you can see the excitement is there. I think that there's this narrative out here that the players were not excited about this. And there probably are. Listen, there are over 120 guys in the locker room at any given time. And, there's probably somewhere around 80 guys right now that are still going to be potentially on Auburn's roster next year. Not looking at those who might potentially transfer. If every single one of them liked the hire, I'd be shocked. Right. It's just that it's hard to get consensus on anything. So if every one of them were excited about it, I'd be shocked. But there are some people who are definitely excited, who are like, hey, let's go, let's get this. And I've seen multiple guys who we had on the channel who I've talked to. I saw Donovan Kaufman tweet his excitement about it. Marquise Burks, even though he's going to be leaving, was talking about how he was excited. I already spoke about Robbie Ashford. There's been a lot of players and guys who are coming to the program who are commits that are excited about this. So can't help but echo their excitement. And we'll see where it goes. Listen, there are a lot of things that are yet to be fleshed out, and we hope to see those things move in a positive direction. Let's see here. And again, not consensus. Rand says not a fan of his fake Bible salesman persona, but just win and win consistently, and I'll give him a chance. Listen, he did sound like a Baptist preacher. I am not going to front with you. I said as much in our private chat that we have for the War Report. I was like, hey, man, he can kind of giving me Baptist preacher vibes right now. With how he was talking, he is a faith-based motivational guy, so he definitely had that sort of vibe when he got up there and started talking. Once he got past the emotional things that were about his family and he got into his prepared statements, I definitely felt that vibe from him. So I can understand why you would feel that way. Let's see here. Tony Baker jumps back in and asks, is Freeze the least paid SEC coach at the moment? Glad it's low. They can pay assistant good competitive money. I don't know. I don't know what the salaries are for all of the SEC coaches. The reported salary figure was 6 years, 6.5 million per year, not 6.5 million for the life of the contract. So, we were paying Coach Harsin somewhere in the 5 range, and Freeze got 6.5. And at the time, Coach Harsin was right in like the median. I do know that there are several coaches being paid more than him, of course, including names that we've already mentioned: Lane Kiffin, of course, Kirby Smart. I think Josh Heupel's contract might be more than that. I don't know what Napier's getting at Florida. I do know the Kentucky contract for Mark Stoops is like 8.5, something like that. So he's probably closer to the lower end right now with the way the coaching salaries are going. I don't know what the Vandy coach is getting. I know LSU's paying Bill a bunch of money, right? So there are coaches making a lot of money in the SEC right now. He probably is closer to the end. or the bottom end of what the pay rate is. Um, let's see. Da, 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 da. I want to make sure oh wow, big super chat here that I almost didn't even see come in. Appreciate the super chat, but Patrick Duke jumps in and says, imagine if we all if so imagine if we were all half the human beings as Caddy and realize Auburn is far bigger than any coach. Appreciate the super chat there, Patrick. Listen, man, Cadillac Williams, Carnell Williams is a man, he's just an awesome human being, man. Again, I talked a lot about this with my guy Dukes to Scoop, and I'll have that up here. I'll try to have that up here shortly on the channel for you guys to view, man. But just can't say enough about the level of character that he displays and the level of selflessness that he has for a guy who's accomplished the things that he's accomplished to not have an ego attached to it. Though other people want to impute an ego onto him and make him try to have one, he refuses to do it. And he's just all about servanthood, humble spirit, but just really has a high level of integrity and character. Can't say enough good things about him. We are hopeful to get an interview with Coach Carnell Williams on this channel sometime soon. So we're working on that. You guys tweet at him, man. Just go hit up Cadillac on Twitter, man, right now and be like, hey, you need to go sit down with the War Report. I'm all about social media bullying when it comes to getting people to come sit down with us. I'm not a fan of bullying unless it's people bullying people to come sit down with us and talk on the War Report. So yes, definitely can't say enough about the level of character in which he's displayed through all of this. Melanie Ashford jumps in again and says both of Freeze's daughters are Auburn grads. That was an interesting moment as well, that I knew about, right? But I hadn't really put into context around the idea of someone who is a part of the Auburn family, is that Hugh Freeze's family is already a part of the Auburn family. So this isn't a big change for him to try to adjust to the character and the culture of Auburn. He already has Auburn people inside of his family. So this is just kind of him joining along in a more official capacity than just being the dad of Auburn students. It's going to be him being now the head football coach. He immediately, and this is a seasoned professional in him doing this, immediately started using pronouns that used we, right? Like he started talking about how we did at the end of the season and things that we can do to improve. But just even in arrears, talking about things that happened with this program, he was already including himself amongst that. So I think that was listen, man, he did a great job at the press conference. You had to have come in that with skepticism to not acknowledge that, right? Like you can't acknowledge he didn't do a good job. All you can say is that I don't believe anything he just said. All of that doesn't matter. He's still this person, right? And again, welcome to that opinion. I'm not here to refute anybody's opinions in regard to that sort of thing. I'm just talking about specifically what happened at the press conference, which I think he did an outstanding job. Let's see here. Cappy Man 34 clarifying, I read earlier that he is an 8th place salary in the SEC. So that would put him in the middle tier, maybe bottom tier, like upper bottom tier, probably at 8th place. So he is definitely not at the top of the pack, but I think that that's a fair salary to bring him in and let him earn his way into a bigger contract. So I think I actually like the figure that he has right now because of the risk that's involved with it. So I think it's a good place for Auburn to have negotiated that. And listen, again, Jimmy Sexton's no fool. He understood what he was doing here. Cleveland Brown further clarifies Clark Lee makes the least at $3.75 million, which is to be expected. Listen, for whatever people want to say about the direction that Vanderbilt is going, that program has perennially been at the bottom of the league. And so for him to be at the bottom of the league in his salary, not unexpected. And with the investment that they typically make in their athletics, specifically in football, hasn't been a large amount. So I don't anticipate him having a really large salary or ever really being in the higher end of salaries. The unfortunate reality is Clark Lee is going to do really good at Vanderbilt, and he's going to move on to another Power 5 school if he really wants to get a payday, because he'll never really truly get a huge payday at Vanderbilt for relative to how good a coach he could potentially be. And that's just the reality of being a Vandy coach. If you're a Vandy fan, I apologize if I just offended you. That's just kind of the reality of where we are. Don't be mad at the truth. Let's see. Steve Bradley jumps in, says Freeze has got to hire a DC that will be completely in control. Freeze leaves it all up to him. Go and get a good one, not got to get a good one, not one for OJT. Absolutely. I mean, listen, if you are to believe what he said, he's already gotten a lot of offers from people who want to be on his staff. So, uh, listen, there's no reason for us and us as Auburn to not have a quality coordinators. We've got the money that we saved on not having to pay. Listen, we've already saved, and I don't want to make Hugh Freeze seem like a bargain basement find, like we went into the thrift shop and found a coach. Uh, but it is kind of, I mean, thrift shop analogy actually makes sense. He was somewhere else before and nobody wanted him, whatever. Anyway, I don't want to go down that route because I don't want to disrespect Hugh Freeze. I think he's an amazing football coach. But because we didn't pay all of that money that was reported that Lane Kiffin wanted to be able to come over here, and people were saying Auburn was willing to spend and still have to spend to get coordinator hires. We've got money right now that we should be able to put into the coffers to go and get a quality staff to be able to fill out his staff. So looking forward to seeing what that looks like. Joe Kyle jumps back in. What kind of grade are we giving the AD for the head coaching search? This is an interesting question because if you guys follow me on Twitter, I made the statement a couple of days ago. I think people feel like it's easy to hire head coaches, and it's just not. Like, that's just not the reality. Number one, it's not easy to hire a head coach in general. It's doubly difficult to hire a head coach at Auburn University, just because of the nature of what it is to be the head coach of Auburn, as far as the pressure that it exists just year in and year out. I mean, I talk about this a lot. There are very few programs that can say every single year I have to play probably 5 or 4 of the top programs in the country, right? And if you want to bump it to 5 and you say, at least one of the top 5, who people consider coaches in the country, like regardless of what we say about Jimbo Fisher, he's probably in the top 20 coaches in the country. Every year, Auburn has to face Nick Saban in Alabama until Nick Saban decides to retire. But still, Alabama every year. Every year, unless we go to this non-traditional thing and they break up that rivalry, Deep South's overall, we are going to have to contend with Georgia and Kirby Smart, who most people feel is best coach in the country right now, every year. Then every year, you've got to go face now Brian Kelly and LSU every single year, right? You've got to go face Texas A&M and all the money that they can throw at whoever to either coach it or recruit it or whatever. You've got to face that every single season. And then occasionally you have a crossover game with a team like Florida or Tennessee, who's now surging, right? Like, it's a tough job that every year on your schedule, you're going to have one of the most difficult things that any person should have to face, right? And so it's hard to hire for that, not just in how difficult it is. Number one, you have to want that. And Hugh Freeze talked about his competitive nature and him looking forward to the opportunity to coach against those guys. You got to have a guy that wants that, number one. You got to have a guy that wants and number two, you have to kind of want a lot of the other stuff that comes with the Auburn job, as far as dealing with the boosters and as far as dealing with this fan base and how much they're impassioned about football and really just wanting to see us succeed. And then you have to kind of be good enough to sit in the seat, right? So, like, once you whittle out the people who are good enough to sit in the seat, and then you get to the people who actually want the smoke, and then you get to the people who are uh, mentally tough enough to deal with all the extracurriculars, like, you whittle yourself down to a small group of people who are qualified, right? And then you got to negotiate a contract that makes sense for both Auburn and that person. It's not easy to do. It's a lot more difficult to do than I think people are giving credit to. So I think that Coach Freeze being hired and the job that John Cohen did is admirable. He didn't take a ton of time, more time than most fans would have wanted, but I think the additional time was more so that they could figure out how to get their PR legs underneath them, not because they didn't have the coach zeroed in. So I think he did a great job. I think they executed the strategy they wanted and went out and handled it in a timely fashion. Um, Lisa Daniel, and people are welcome to disagree with me, but again, he asked my opinion. My opinion. I got the microphone. Hey, whatever. Um, Lisa Daniel jumps in, very impressed. He had to watch Auburn. He had to watch Auburn games already. I thought that was an interesting statement to make. Um, and if you watch this on Facebook and you watch people in the live chat and maybe even some reactions on Twitter as it was happening, people were commenting on the fact that he was watching Auburn games at the end of his Liberty tenure. No wonder they were losing games at the end of the season. Um, I just think it's interesting how people twist someone's words, because what he said is they were fortunate that the games didn't coincide with one another. So he had the opportunity to watch the games. So it wasn't that he was spending time watching games and not preparing as a Liberty head coach. He was saying Auburn was playing at times I wasn't. So I got a chance to go and watch it. And again, I think that that's interesting even more, because he's like, that's the seat that I want to go sit in. Let me go see what they're doing. He watched the Iron Bowl. He got an opportunity, he said specifically when someone asked him about Robbie Ashford, to see, hey, I was already impressed with his athleticism. I knew he could run, but he made throws that made me say, oh, wait a minute. That's impressive. I can work with that. And he talked about, hey, he's had a track record of being able to work with quarterbacks and get them into a good place. I can't help but be excited for the future of Robbie Ashford if Coach Hugh Freeze already sees something in him that he can work with. So it's going to be interesting to see how that quarterback position develops. And he also talked about, hey, he's not the only guy in that room that can play. So I look forward to a healthy quarterback competition coming up, but definitely excited to see what he can do with the intangibles that Robbie Ashford brings to the position, and helping him getting to a place to be a better quarterback. More super chat stuff coming in here from Sheldon Hickman saying Harsin didn't recruit or connect. Hugh will do both portal and high school recruits. I won't say that Harsin didn't recruit. He definitely was not the level of recruiter that I've already heard Hugh Freeze is. And listen, I've talked to, you guys know, I don't like to talk about who we talked to, but definitely talked to parents of players who have been recruited by Hugh Freeze, whose their kid has been recruited by Hugh Freeze. I've talked to athletes who have been recruited by Hugh Freeze, and all of them say he's an excellent recruiter. And they can, and parents of players, when I say parents of players who are at Auburn right now, who've seen the difference in the recruiting prowess of both of those, say it is definitely different the way that Hugh Freeze approaches the recruiting process than Brian Harsin ever did. Not saying that they disliked Brian Harsin's approach, but definitely if they were grading the two against each other, say that Hugh Freeze's approach is way different, and it is more effective in being able to lure in those top prospects. So expect with the with Auburn being able to sell itself in the way that it does to get people to the Plains, Hugh Freeze is definitely a guy who can close the deal with guys. From what I've heard, listen, I the most I ever did was play a little high school basketball freshman year before. Anyway, most I ever did was play a little basketball. I am not a top recruit at anything, and never had the experience to be recruited by anybody. But I trust people who've been through that process more than once, mind you. Some of these people with multiple athletes that they've reared in their lifetime, to say they know what great recruiting has looked like, and have heard nothing but great things about Hugh Freeze. So looking forward to that, and the difference that can be made, along with, again, just the nature of what Auburn is as a place, and the people who he already has on staff, that will be critical, I think, to getting him into a right place. So looking forward to seeing how that pans out. Um, Let's see who else we got. A lot of chat still coming in here. I appreciate you guys. Once again, you're rocking with your man Ike Jones here on the War Report, reacting to the press conference that just ended recently with Hugh Freeze being announced as the head coach of Auburn football. A lot of thanks to those of you who are already members of it. I'm going to keep plugging this because, listen, man, this is how we pay bills, man. Between people who are sponsoring the War Report with their businesses, you all can come on board to make sure that we can continue to bring you these midday things. Because listen, there was once upon a time, not long ago, that I would have to be doing this on the clock. And right now, I do have a little bit more liberty to be able to do this liberty. I didn't mean to do that as a play on words, but I do have a little bit more freedom to be able to do this in midday and give you guys instant reaction stuff. So we appreciate those of you who are helping to make sure that we can continue to bring this content, come on board with the War Rapport, and get us in the right space. Let's see here. Just going to jump in here with more comments here. Going to try to pick from some people who I haven't heard from here. James Barnett, can't recall if we talked already today, but how do we feel about Cadillac being assistant head coach, and how much input do you think he will have with the staff? This is a very interesting question. So we already talked a little bit about liking him being assistant head coach, but the second half of this is what I want to major on here is how much input do you think he will have with this staff? The answer to that, in my opinion, is a lot. Right. So again, I see more and hear more than I say. I will say this, that Cadillac had a lot of input on who remained when he got the interim job. And I think he will have a lot of input on who stays now that Hugh Freeze is here. And you heard Hugh Freeze kind of mention, he's going to lean on him a lot about just kind of learning the landscape of the building. And I think what he meant by that was just, who are the people who, this is an important thing if you've ever been a part of leadership change in an organization. So change management within any organization is important. You need to understand who are the people that are mission critical when you come in. Like, it's little things like, I'll give you a for instance. When I was in high school, we had a change of administration at the high school, and part of the change um, that was necessary was going to be like a downsizing of some of the departments, right? And one of the things that happened is they were considering getting rid of uh, the lunch lady. Doesn't seem like a big deal, right? Like, they were just gonna replace him with a new, system, da da da. And it was a huge uproar because everybody just really liked the lunch lady, right? Like, they're just like, "Hey, man, you can't fire her." Like, and so, like, there's this big backlash. And I think it's important that you understand the lay of the land when you come in and start making changes. There are certain people that don't seem mission critical, that are critical for morale, or that are critical for and what we call glue people, right? Again, I talked a little bit about this with my guy Dukes the Scoop. There are glue people, and Cadillac was one of those glue guys, right? He's a glue guy in that room, and he's going to be able to identify the other people that, hey man, these people help hold this together. We have to find a space for them on this staff, if possible. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how much input he has and who's going to be retained because of the role that Cadillac Williams has on this staff. Let's see here. More here in the comments section. And again, I appreciate you guys jumping in and giving your feedback here in the comments. La 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 la. Boom, 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 boom. Uh, John Brandon says Tank's mom tweeted that with this hire, it was possible Tank might stay, but they had a lot to think about. This is very interesting as well. Again, I'm going to punt a little bit on this because we did actually talk about this. Hey, listen, me and Dukes talked about a lot of stuff when we talked last night because, it was just a hot button topic. It was a good time for me to sit down with a guy who has a pulse with the program. If you guys don't know Dukes the Scoop, make sure you lock in with him. He's a friend of the program. He's got his own channel that he does, but he and I go back to our days at Auburn University. So props to him. But we talked a little bit about the potential that Tank may stay. It is a possibility that Tank Bigsby comes back for his senior season with Auburn, and there's a lot of things that will weigh into that. But the Hugh Freeze hire was a big portion of that because the offense may look different and allow him the ability to really flourish as a runner, because we're going to open up some things in the pass game and play design wise. So I do think that it's interesting that his mother came out and made a very definitive statement about that. So I hadn't seen that yet, but very interesting. Interesting to see how that two-headed monster of a backfield, three-headed monster, if you factor into Mari Alston, and then you look at the potential that Coach Carnell Williams is going to bring in with new recruits. It's going to be really interesting to see how that running back room looks and how we're going to utilize them. So looking forward to seeing that. Let's see here. Our guy Reginald Perkis jumps back in here and says Hugh Freeze seems to be an excellent manager. This comes from a former educator with an MBA, managed an Auburn business. Listen, he does have this is the term that a lot of people like to use for quality head coaches now is the CEO type coach, one that can just sit back and make sure that the program is running in an efficient way. This goes back to conversations we had with former athletic director Alan Green and how he talked about how he wants his coaches to run their programs like a business unit. And hey, you get your budget and you go and do what you want to with your budget, run your program in that way. Hugh Freeze does have the pedigree to be able to do those sorts of things. So I think it's going to be important to look at the types of hires that he's making and the decisions that he's already hinting at making with turning over the play calling duties as to whether or not he's going to do that. I think a lot of that has to do with whatever the OC hire is, right? If he's going to bring in an OC that he is confident in, being able to um, call plays. He's talked specifically about his prowess in the red zone and other people's prowess outside of the red zone, right? Like he's saying, hey, these guys do some really inventive things between the 20s. He didn't say it just like this, but this is, hey, that's red zone talk. Between the 20s, these guys do some really great things, and he's confident in his ability in being able to score in the red zone. That's a stat. You guys hold me to this. We're going to go look at red zone percentages under Hugh Freeze at Liberty and Ole Miss. I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of how he's been able to handle the red zone. So I think that's a stat that I want to go look at. So you guys hold me to that, trying to look up that information for you later. Or if you already have that information, feel free to share it in the chat and we'll take a look at it. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how he runs this business that is, and be clear, it is a business unit of Auburn football. Let's see here. More comments here. Oh, so listen, hey man, the moms have spoken. He said, for Tank's mom to tweet that, believe me, it's huge. He was definitely leaving. I like this. So, hey, if and trust me, the mamas talk, bro. So if she says Tank was up out of here, just know, trust and believe. Before this, it wasn't even a consideration in his mind because they would know. So definitely good to see that. Cleveland Brown comes with the sunshine pump and says, if Tank returns and we revamp the O line, we could have another 2013 season. Early sunshine pump. Listen, it's definitely possible. If the big portion of this is if we revamp the O line, there's a lot of work that has to happen with this offensive line. But here's the thing, man, and as I dig into the offensive line and I dig into all the things that we've done, um, we look at the unit that's been successful with the offensive line right now. You talk about center being Brandon Council. He has no eligibility left. He can't come and anchor that line anymore. But we still will have um, Tate Johnson, who started at center, potentially coming back to be a center again. So there's a potential that we could have someone with some center experience coming back, but there's a hole there at center, and that's an important hole to fill, but it's one that can be filled with the transfer portal. I want you guys to remember there are quality guys that can be gotten in the transfer portal. Center is going to be an important one. Somebody who just knows how to make the calls and understands. That's something I think that's going to be of utmost importance to this staff, is figuring out who is going to be the guy with experience that's going to be making the calls for the offensive line, because that's going to help the quarterback a lot too. Having the right protection calls up front is going to help the quarterback be able to do his job more effectively, because that's one less thing that he's going to have to worry about. And there needs to be some synergy between those two guys. So important thing to have the right center situation figured out. So looking forward to seeing how that plays out. Moving on though, Jeremiah Wright at guard is going to be able to come back for another year. And if he doesn't transfer, which I don't see why he would, that's going to be a solidified position potentially on that offensive line. The other guys along that offensive line that you look at, Alec Jackson is going to be out of here. Killian Zerer is a senior, and I believe he participated in senior day things. I do think he still has a COVID year. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. He would potentially be able to come back at tackle. Oxton Troxel doesn't have any eligibility left, and hopefully his recovery is going well from his injury. He would not be able to come back. Let me think who else was along that offensive line there towards the end. But at any rate, we're looking at maybe only 2 guys returning along that offensive line of the 5 guys that we have up there. If Tate Johnson isn't at center and he can bump out to maybe a guard, then that's going to be good to have another person. Then you bring in an experienced person. But we're going to be looking to fill at least 2 to 3 spots along that offensive line, considering, and that's if nobody like a Cord Bradley or, the freshmen that we have coming in between Brayton Joyner and Wheaton can't step in immediately and play a little bit, right? So we have some pieces that we need to fill out along the offensive line. That's going to be crucial to the success of whomever's going to be the quarterback next year, whether that's Robbie Ashford or anyone else. But that offensive line success is going to be crucial to make sure that both the quarterback and those running backs have a good opportunity to be effective. Let's keep here jumping into the chat. B Parham says with NIL money, AU can pay Tank more than the NFL if he discovers he's a third or lower pick, right? Potentially. I mean, NIL money could put you in a good situation. What I want to remind people is that maybe like an NFL salary is just a portion of what a player can make, right? So maybe his NIL money would be equivalent to a low tier NFL salary, third, fourth, fifth round salary. But what he could make in endorsement deals on top of that would push him way over that, right? So NIL money is a good. I'm gonna use a term I used when talking to my guy Dukes to Scoot last night, is a good bridge potentially for guys who are on that fence, but definitely don't want to underscore that NFL money is just different money, and he could definitely make a ton of money playing in the NFL. Another super chat here from I Am Hop, who said, I'm so excited for Robbie. He's been gifted a golden opportunity, and best part, he knows it and he's ready to work. If anybody questions Robbie Ashford's work ethic, I don't really know what you have been looking at as far as football games. If anybody questions his abilities, I think that it's fair to question his ability to throw the football, but you have to do that knowing that he had an injury that he was working through, or multiple injuries, not just an injury. So I think that can improve. And then with the right tutelage, listen, I felt this way about a few previous quarterbacks that we had, right? The only one that I felt came in mechanically sound was Jarrett Stidham in the last 10 years, right? Mechanically sound. Jarrett Stidham was the only one, and he was developed as a quarterback before he got to Auburn University as far as his ability to do that. So with sound mechanics his mechanics being cleaned up a little bit, and then helping him understand progressions and reads, which I think, again, Hugh Freeze touted his ability to do that with quarterbacks, is an awesome opportunity for physically gifted athlete who is a quarterback, right? I want to say that definitively, a quarterback, not an athlete playing quarterback, a quarterback with physical tools in Robbie Ashford. He's already got a good arm, from his baseball. It just, again, mechanically, he is still very much a baseball player with the windup and all those things. But I've seen him make some great throws. He just needs to be more consistent in that. So definitely excited for the potential opportunity for young Robbie Ashford, who, is by all accounts a workaholic warrior. Once he can put those other things together with his physical giftings of being able to throw the football and run the football, sky's the limit. So looking forward to seeing it. Let's see what else we got here with the chat here. Again, I appreciate all of you guys for jumping in here midday to just talk about this. Ben Bloodworth always jumping in with great commentary. He said Mike G had an excellent question that actually revealed good info. Good job, Mike G. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but definitely a great question by Mike about the offensive play calling duties, and it gave us an insight into the early thought process of Coach Hugh Freeze as he begins to round out what he wants to be on his staff. So definitely congrats to him. Again, I want to remind everybody, you are live with your man Ike Jones here on the War Report. If you feel like I'm skipping your comment, I promise you it's not intentional. There's a lot of comments here, and I am making no apologies for prioritizing those who are super chatting and those who are members of the War Report. They are supporting us, and I want to make sure that they're feeling the love from me here in this chat. So I'm not intentionally just skipping over your name. It's just the people who are members show up as a green name, and so my eye naturally goes to those there in the chat. So it's not that I'm skipping you on purpose, but I do see others here. Um, Yo, Malcolm here says he can stay and graduate. I know Mama wants that. Yes, definitely a good point. That I don't think that there are many people who envision their sons coming to a university and don't want them to come and get the education as well. So definitely an opportunity for Tank Bixby to come and get his degree and get an additional year to prep himself for the NFL while still being able to make some good NIL money. I think that that's a win-win-win. So it does give him something to think about there. So definitely appreciate the fact that he has the thought process to say, hey, maybe this is an opportunity for me to stay at a place that he apparently loves playing. He loves the coach that he's with Cadillac. He's being retained. He loves playing for the Auburn family. And he's got an opportunity to be someone special in the record books at Auburn with another year here. So looking forward to seeing that potentially happening. Not saying it will happen for sure, but potentially. Brody McGritty says Freeze will make in the recruiting process, or if he will make one at all. I don't even know what that means fully. I think there's some typos in that. I didn't even read that before I put it up on the screen, so apologize for that. Let's see here. Let's see here. Yeah, beat Parham over 500 at any given time here on it. If you haven't already, man, I don't like to beg for likes, but likes and comments definitely help with the algorithm, and the algorithm has not been kind to your boys here at the War Report lately. So you guys liking the video and commenting on the video after it's done, even if it's just to say War Eagle, helps us a lot to be able to make sure that other people who are interested in Auburn content find our stuff. So you guys have even listen. If you don't want to be a member of the War Report, you don't want to give us any money, you don't want to super chat any stuff, what helps us a lot is sharing this video to other people, liking and commenting on the video. If you're watching this later on repeat, man, just go and do those things. That helps us a lot. And listen, that doesn't cost you any money. It just costs you a couple of clicks. Subscribe, like, comment. Those things help us a lot, and we appreciate that. The live engagement is definitely appreciated as well. So we appreciate all of you who have taken time to do that, to stop and just click the thumbs up on a video, man. It is it's an immense help to us continuing to do these sorts of things. John Brandon with another chat here says, Ike, who is one player that you hope Freeze gets really involved in the offense? Despite the obvious at the quarterback position, let's go to a place that I feel like needs some love, and let's talk about this wide receiver room. I'm excited to see an offense that I hoped would happen with Brian Harsin, and that is more multiple and allows us to have a passing attack that gets us more balanced, because I think that opens it up so much more for our dynamic running attack. But I have been pleading silently and not so silently for us in the red zone to get our big receivers involved. Landon King has removed his name from the transfer portal, so we have an opportunity to get Landon King and Camden Brown on the field at the same time and be dynamic, big body pass catching receivers. Amari Kelly's a big body guy, right? We've got guys in this room who can go and get it. I want to see an offense specifically in the red zone. Hugh Freeze, sir, you already said red zone, you are the guy. I am going to go look at your red zone stuff when I go put this film on, and I want to see some big body receivers making some catches in the red zone. I want to see some fade routes. I want to see some stop routes that take advantage of these guys who have natural giftings to just be bigger and more physical than other people, get opportunities on short down and distance stuff. If we just need a 3rd and 5 and a red zone touchdown target that allows us to pick up, 1st and 15, from the 15-yard line type of stuff, right? Or 1st and goal from the 8. It doesn't have to be cookie cutter. We can just say, all right, cool, Robbie, go put it up for grabs for one of these guys and let them go do their thing. Right. So I'm looking forward to seeing guys like that get an opportunity. And I can throw out some other names, man. I like the acumen and the intelligence that I see from Jay Fair. I'm not sure what Javarius Johnson does as far as coming back. But the slot is going to be dynamic next year if you got Javarius and you've got Jay Fair, because I think Jay Fair is just a smart player, man. Javarius Johnson is a talented, speedy athlete, and we saw him be able to do those things this year. I think that if he comes back for another season with Auburn, he's going to be able to showcase himself in this offense. But I think Jay Fair is just a really smart. If you guys are patrons, you see me point this out in a watch the film. He didn't even touch the ball on the play, but just him noticing the blitz that was going to be happening. Once you see those sorts of things and you start to point out, oh man, there's guys who they pay attention to film, they understand things. Jay Fair is one of those young kids. I think he just gets it. So I'm looking forward to seeing him more involved in the offense in the future as well. But I could go down a laundry list of names, but those are just some that off the top of my head. Landon King, Camden Brown, Jay Fair, Omari Kelly, guys that I think will be back next year, and guys that I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can do in this offense again, outside of the obvious quarterback position and running back stuff that we know are going to get their opportunities. Let's see. More chats here, just a lot coming in here. I don't know what I pronounced really well, but my pronunciation game, are you referring to me, is impeccable. Listen, I appreciate that. I don't know what I did well, but if you're talking about me, I appreciate it. Some guy in the comment section yesterday said that that I take over conversations too much and I like the sound of my voice. And I had to admit, I do actually like the sound of my voice. I think I actually have a decent voice, and I've been told so on many occasions. So I appreciate you acknowledging that you think I like it. I don't talk a lot because I like the sound of my voice. I talk a lot because I feel like I know what I'm talking about. So if you disagree with what I'm saying, then I'll shut up more often. But when I start saying stuff that's stupid or you disagree with, you could just say that instead of saying you feel like I talk too much, or go watch somebody else's channel. Your choice. I don't have any control over that portion, but hey, listen, we all like to talk a lot, and I do enjoy talking. Why else would I get up here on YouTube and have a channel in which I talk unless I like to talk? Go do something else with your life. Anyway, let's see what else we hear. Lawrence Robinson gives a list of some other people who he'd like to see. Warsham's an interesting one because he didn't get a lot of targets this year. He got a little bit of work in the punt return stuff. Here's a thing that I think is underdone, particularly in college. I understand the thought process of you have dynamic players. You want to give them as many opportunities as you can to make plays. I want to see more specialists emerge in college football again. I want to see guys who they may not be getting a lot of reps on defense or on offense, but with the ball in their hands, you want to find a way to get them involved. And there's no better way, if they have the acumen for it, than to put them on return duty. I want to see more guys who aren't getting the carries at running back, or aren't getting the targets at wide receiver, or aren't getting the reps at DB, have an opportunity to go return kicks, right? I want to see more of that. I want to see more guys who aren't getting the reps on defense go and be special teams guys that are just going out there. I liked what I saw from Joko Willis when he made that big hit in LSU. I wanted to see him more on special teams if you weren't going to put him out there on defense. Allow guys who are talented to have the opportunity to go make plays for you. And I went down that rabbit hole because of the mention of Worsham here. I don't know what to expect from him, but I think that he's another guy who can come in and contribute because he's another kind of possession type receiver. And you need those guys when you are trying to pick up crucial third and shorts. You need guys who can just make catches in traffic, aren't scared to take big hits, can just box out and body. And I think we've got enough guys that can do those sorts of things. Let's see here. What else we got? I'm not going to be on here too much longer. We've already been on here over an hour, and I still got a lot of work I got to do today. So, but I do it for y'all. I love y'all. Let's see. G. Sullivan says, Ike, where is the rest of the gang? Mike in Auburn, I know. Listen, everybody, we don't make enough money for everybody to be full time, right? So Mike is in Auburn. He was down at the press conference. B Will is taking care of business today. Caesar's at work. So I'm the guy who's here who happens to be at home all day. So I have the opportunity to come and talk with you guys here. And I'm sure they will have their opportunity to talk more about this. Mike does the Mike Mack in the Memes podcast. They likely will be recording that today. So you'll be able to hear some of that in podcast form, his thoughts on all the things. If you guys didn't know, yes, we do have a podcast. The Auburn Express is our audio podcast, and we have that. I've been doing some stuff. I'm going to have a super interesting conversation now on what we're calling the Amen Corner. If you guys haven't checked that out, myself, Paul Meharry, who is with the UGA Sports, and a guy by the name of Kenny Bland with Toe to Toe, who is a Florida guy. So we have a show that we're going to be trying to do weekly for you all. It's going to be a super interesting conversation with those guys about their perspective on this hire with Hugh Freeze. So you guys make sure you tune into that. That's going to be coming later on this week. We're going to be recording that this week. You definitely want to tune into that. So content that you guys can have from the War Report in audio only format. Mike Mack and Memes, they're definitely going to weigh in on this hire. Me with the Amen Corner podcast, we're definitely going to weigh in on this hire. From the video standpoint and audio standpoint, we're going to have me and Duke's Scoop talking about this. We talked about that last night. That's already done. Just got to get that up and ready for you guys. And then we're going to have a ton of things about just who Hugh Freeze as a play caller. I'm going to be doing some video breakdowns of that stuff coming up. There is plenty of great content coming from the War Report. You guys stay tuned for that. Scott Chapman jumps in with a super chat here and says, what do you think Saban said when he knew he was getting hired? Another interesting thing that came out that Hugh Freeze said during the introductory press conference that I liked. He said that he hoped that there were some guys that were nervous about the fact that he was coming back into the conference, because listen, he's beat Nick Saban a couple of times. And I am not one of those fans who lists that as part of a checklist. It's like, well, he's done this and he's beat Saban, right? Like, great. That's wonderful. I'm not saying that's definitely not a negative. I want to see championship resumes as a thing where I start listing off stuff, but not everybody's going to have championship pedigree when they come into a new coaching job. It's just not the nature of most of those things. But however, I thought it was interesting that he said that. Number one, what do I think Nick Saban thought? I thought he thought, man, my job got a little bit tougher. Listen, if I remember, I might ask him at SEC Media Days what he thinks about it, because we're going to have an opportunity to ask questions to the coaches. But I think, the job of being an SEC West coach and being the big dog, it gets tougher every single year with every new hire, because teams are in an arms race to try to figure out how they can continue to compete. And I don't think it's getting any easier for Nick Saban to continue to do that. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that reaction comes out. Let's see. Let's see. Life with Maine says we need to get hashtag War Report trending on Twitter. Let's get these awesome guys the recognition they deserve. Listen, I'd appreciate if y'all get us trending, man. Listen, we need the support from you all. Listen, we can't do what we do without you all supporting us. And the more you talk about us, because to be clear, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. Most of the time when I see our name mentioned, it ain't some positive stuff. It's some people trying to rag on something that they felt was a bad take from somebody, blah, blah, blah. So the more people are saying positive things about us out there in the world, well, I mean, heck, if they're saying negative stuff, at least they're talking about us. Maybe that makes somebody else want to come watch us. I really just talk. Say what you want to. I'm gonna still say what I have to say, and you can like it or not, and tell people I'm stupid and I have unbelievably horrible takes. All of that is completely fine. Just bring facts to the conversation when we start talking, because I, like Hugh Freeze, have a problem with responding to people when they say stuff about me. Because I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna talk back, and I'm gonna defend my position. I'm gonna defend my takes until you say something stupid, and then I just ignore you, because I'm just like, all right, it's clear you don't actually want to have a substantive conversation. We good on that. But hey, um, so yeah, appreciate y'all talking about us on social media. It definitely helps to keep us in those conversations. Um, Lawrence Robinson says bad press is still press, Reverend Ike. Yes, it is indeed. Listen, so if people are talking and your name is being mentioned, it definitely doesn't hurt. Um, let's see here. Frank Frank Colazzo, if I pronounce that correctly, or Colazo, says, I'm sure Satan will be asked about it in his next presser. I think it'll be interesting to see whether or not, like, so his next presser is going to be it's going to be a bowl game presser, right? Like, it's going to be bowl prep. I don't know that he does a weekly thing that's not connected to a game. And since they're not playing in the SEC championship game, the next time that we'll likely have a press conference that includes Nick Saban will be once a bowl is announced and he's talking about preparation for that bowl game. So I do think it'll be interesting to see whether or not someone mentions it in that presser. So we will definitely hear what his thoughts are on this hire at some point in time coming up here in the near future. Appreciate that chat there, Frankie. Super chat here by Jazzy Joe, and I'm about to get out of here after that. Did y'all see Mike's dome in the stream? Yes, Mike G walking around looking lost, as Walt Taylor said earlier, after the presser trying to figure out where he was going to go afterwards. I definitely saw that in the stream there. But shouts out to Mike, man. Good to see him out there walking around doing his thing. But anyway, man, I'm gonna get out of here. You guys have had enough of hearing me talk. It's a lot different when you just got to hear me ramble on. And of course, because I like the sound of my own voice, I'm good with continue to do. That's the only reason I'm wearing headphones. Like, I can't hear nobody else but me in these headphones. So this is all for show, because why else do I need headphones on? I can't hear nothing else. Anyway, I appreciate you guys for locking in us. We appreciate you here at the War Report. Once again, if you want to become a member of the War Report and get locked in with some of this exclusive content, make sure you go ahead and do that. If you are a member and you want to gift a membership, make sure you go ahead and do that. Before you get out of here, click that like button. If you aren't already subscribed, please subscribe. And if you want to share with other people the joys of hearing me talk, you can go ahead and share this video on social media and be like, hey, man, come listen to this. Make sure you use the clown emoji, though, right? Because that make them click a little bit more. Man, come listen to what this clown was saying about Hugh Freeze. And then maybe they'll click on the video a little bit more readily, right? And so they help us get our engagement up. I don't care. Matter of fact, if you just want to do like a disinformation campaign and just like share a bunch of our content, but like say terrible things about it and be like, man, these clowns don't know what they're talking about. Listen to them talk about this. And it's like the most insightful take that you've ever heard in your life. I'd appreciate that too. Like, go to the place on the video where you think I made the most poignant comment in the world, share that and be like, listen to what this War Report clown said. That'd be awesome. I actually would appreciate that, because then people are more likely to click on the video and they'll be like, ha ha ha, the War Report sucks. I hate them too. And then they'll share the video and then they'll give their commentary about it. So I take all of that. I'm good, bro. I'm good. As long as you love me, baby. As long as you love me. Anyway, man, I'm out of here. I'll holler at y'all next time. As always, is War Eagle, and we will be back with more content today. The presser's coming up. I'm going to have that up on the channel, and my conversation with my man Deuce the Scoop. Holla at y'all. War Eagle out.